Good morning, everybody. We're glad you're here. We're going to be looking at the Gospel of Luke again today, continuing on through our quarterly leadership. Before we do that, let me highlight a few of the calendar dates that are coming up. Next Sunday, we will not have Sunday school. We'll be having brunch for all the ladies in our church, celebrating women, womanhood, and Mother's Day. That's next Sunday, which is May the 9th. And we'll meet in the fellowship hall at 10. And anybody who wishes to stay for the 11 o'clock service will have worship and be recognizing our ladies and mothers during the 11 o'clock worship hour. So don't forget that. I've asked several of our men, there's always a good faithful crew of good cooks among our men, but we have not had a meal at church or any kind of breakfast. This will be a brunch kind of affair. We haven't had a meal in a very long time, so I reached out to those who generally help and assist, and some who do not. I'm going to put me and Randy to work. Generally, we show up in time for breakfast, but he and I will see if we can be of some use also next Sunday. But 10 o'clock next Sunday. Homecoming is coming soon. The first Sunday morning and Sunday afternoon in June the 6th. That'll be our first day of full Sunday school as well. We're asking all our children, nursery, everything that we've got going here, all our Sunday school will be resuming, and we'll be meeting in our classes. So this class will meet back in the senior adult Sunday school classroom again, as it did previously, trying to get back on track with Sunday school. So that Sunday morning, 10 o'clock, starting full Sunday school. Phil Waldrop is going to be with us during the worship hour, bringing the Word of God to us, and then a homecoming dinner at 12:30 in the fellowship hall. So that's homecoming. Help us spread the word. Invite people. Bring friends and family. Later on in June, Father's Day is 20th. We're also preparing a brunch also for fathers and men on Father's Day. Vacation Bible School is the 17th, the Saturday, another one of our one-day Bible schools. We've had great success, and even in the midst of the pandemic last year, we had a very, very good school on a Saturday in July. August the 1st, Jason Reynolds and his son, Bain, will be coming to minister to us during the 11 o'clock worship hour. That Sunday morning, the whole service will be theirs. On October the 3rd, Bucket is going to be with us, and that will be the Sunday, that October the 3rd, that Sunday morning, that he'll be speaking to us, and we'll be dedicating our Christmas boxes to Honduras. October the 31st is our Tricks and Treats. That Sunday night we'll be meeting here at the church in the fellowship hall, greeting our neighborhood and friends, family, coming for Tricks and Treats from 6 to 8 that Sunday night. Our lesson today is about what I believe is maybe one of the most significant personal things that happened in the life of Jesus. I have a video clip I want to show you in just a moment that I shot back in 2007 that shows that the video is shot on and from the Mount of Olives. The Kidron Valley is below, and on one hill, the Mount of Olives, there are hundreds and hundreds of tombs and graves. There is an olive grove right at the very top, and that is a garden. The Garden of Gethsemane is at the top of the Mount of Olives. So standing there, you can see ancient olive trees, just so old. There is a church and sanctuary that has been built there. There is a large stone in the center of the church sanctuary that is said by tradition to be the stone, perhaps, that Jesus knelt at on the night that he was arrested. And that stone has a crown around it. It's a huge stone there. It does seem to be out of place in a garden. and it does seem like to be a place a little bit away from the olive grove itself. We know that Jesus left his disciples, one group of them, and he took Peter, James, and John and went a little bit further, and then he himself went further into the garden, or at the exterior of the garden. May very well be the very place where Jesus faced the greatest struggle of his life. I believe the greatest battle that has ever been fought on planet Earth was fought that night in the Garden of Gethsemane. Jesus was struggling. He knew what God's will was, but it was so difficult. We seldom know what is going to happen next. I suspect it would prevent us from moving forward in our lives often if we knew some difficulty or some heartache or some tragedy that we might be moving toward. Jesus knew what was going to happen to his life and how difficult things would be for the next few days. And so he went there to pray, to gather strength. We're going to look at that in just a moment. Let me show you this video. I am so happy that I was able to make these video representations. As I look at them again myself, I'm reminded of being there. You see that most of the graves are above ground. There's the Dome of the Rock there. That's the city of Jerusalem, and you can see the Temple Mount. The Eastern Gate is right there. That's the Eastern Gate right there that's facing us. This man has a burro, and for a fee, he rides people from the top of the Mount of Olives into the city of Jerusalem. This is reenacting Jesus' triumphant entry into Jerusalem. This is our group of friends and pilgrims who went there. None of us took him up on the offer of a ride, but a number of us made contributions to the Burro Fund.
What it would look like, you know. So there you go. You get out of the way so you take your concern always in the way of your picture.
All of these are tombs, mausoleums, graves, and the tops of them are usually covered with small stones. When we visit graves, we take flowers. When they visit graves, they take a stone, something that they've personally selected, maybe from their home, their abode, and they've taken it and placed it there. Sometimes the stones have writings on them and scratches or inscriptions. Our guide here is speaking, is a Palestinian Christian. He's not Jewish. We met and had fellowship with a number of Palestinians who were believers in Jesus during our time there. We often hear about the conflict, political and military conflict, or the physical conflict between the Palestinians and the Jews. But really, the Palestinian Christians are the most persecuted people in the land of Israel. Now, these are called ossuaries. They're little boxes. We know that the Jewish people would wrap their dead in cloths, strip cloths, strips of cloth, and they would wrap in the cloth spices. And this was to absorb liquid fluid, body fluids. Eventually the body would be completely desiccated and they would go back, and a part of the next thing, you know, we see in the story of Jesus' resurrection that there were a group of ladies that were coming there with spices. They didn't know that Joseph of Arimathea had already tended to the body of Jesus and wrapped his body in spices. He had already taken care of that first phase. But as the body gets dried out, and later there would be nothing left but the bone, they would come and dismantle all of those bones and place them in a stone box, those ossuaries that you saw there. And those ossuaries would be stacked in a family burial cave, just like you saw a moment ago. And this is from the very top of the Mount of Olives looking out. That is a Muslim mosque that you see there with the golden top. You can see all across through the Kidron Valley, from one end of the valley to the other. And our pilgrims are standing there right at the front of the Garden of Gethsemane. And this is an olive tree. It's very, very old and ancient. The trunk is twisted, misshapen.
Pull a bit of shot up here, Ben. See the dome? Monster up through that hole there?
There is a fence around the primary garden. It would just be too much damage. There are so many pilgrims that pass through this area that they don't allow people to pinch off or break off pieces of the olive trees. That may sound like something that you might never do, but without this fence it would be done. It would be a great deal of damage. Souvenir claiming. It's a beautiful place. I could see why someone would want to go there. And the night of Jesus' arrest, it's not the first time that he was there. He went there often. And that is why it was so easy for Judas to lead the people who would arrest Jesus to where he was. This is something he did quite often. And so it was predictable. He often went here to pray. This is the church. It has a magnificent mural right at the top, at the facade of the church. Now this is a little side garden that's really completely separated from the area, still on top of the Mount of Olives. But this is an enclosed garden. You can see there's about a 10 or 12 foot stone wall built around this area. And generally, tourists are not allowed here at all. I don't know who our guide knew or what preparations were made, but we were allowed to come away. And you can see our group is here. There's about 30 of us. But this was very, very quiet. And we were the only group there. It's a place that most people do not get to see. We felt very fortunate. There is a group of people associated with the church there that they tend and maintain and manage all the trees in the garden, the grass, every bit of the landscaping there to make sure that everything is perfectly maintained. If you're looking in your Bible or in your lesson book, we are going to be looking at the Jesus' prayer in the Garden of Gethsemane. It's in Luke's Gospel, chapter 22. This is a scene of the movie of Mel Gibson's production of The Passion of the Christ. I like many aspects of Jim Caviezel's portrayal of Christ in this, and the Garden of Gethsemane is the first scene. And it is very touching, very moving. So I captured that scene. You can see on our stained glass up here at the Walnut Grove Baptist Church that one of the scenes that's portrayed is Jesus praying in the Garden of Gethsemane. I asked two questions in preparation and promotion for this message. I circulated them out on social media, and they asked this questions. If you needed to crucify a good man, how would you go about it? We began to see in some of the record of Luke that each and every time seemed to add another straw to the camel's back as far as the religious leaders and those who opposed Jesus. Every time he would conclude something, it said, well, they put that as a mark against him. And they began more and more to meet. They began to consult one another. They had plans. We've got to do something with this man. And, you know, if you are plotting to destroy the life of a wicked person, usually you have plenty of ammunition. And you really are not fearful of great opposition. Generally speaking, the general public might be in full consent of destroying or hurting or harming or extinguishing the life of a wicked person. But it's another thing altogether. It says, as we looked at one of the comments in Luke's record last Sunday, that they were afraid of the people. At this time, Jesus was still very popular. And so they're going to have to be very crafty. Now, the fact that it is difficult to crucify a good man did not stop them. But they had to have a very intricate plan. It's not something that they did in passion or something they did as a reaction. It was a plot. It was a scheme. And they had to lay things out in a way that they could control things along the way. There was only one part of their plan that they were uncertain of. They really could not predict what Pontius Pilate would do when they presented Jesus to him. They knew that they would not be able to execute Jesus themselves without bringing, when Rome came in and took control, they had what was called jus gladii, which means the authority to execute, the ultimate execution, the capital sentence. The Romans didn't want their slaves to be executing people. And they dismantled their legal system. They allowed them. With Judaism, the law and the legal system and their religion are intertwined. They're almost inseparable. And so it was very difficult for the Roman hand to have a firm grasp. They wanted to be perceived as a government that allowed the free expression of religious faith, and yet the basis for Judaism is the law. And so there was a thin line there. They didn't know exactly what Pontius Pilate would do when they brought Jesus to him. He tried desperately to release Jesus. He did not want to crucify Jesus, but then ultimately he consented to their wish. It seemed to be what most of the people in the crowd wanted. They wanted Jesus to be crucified. Here's the second question. If you were a good man who didn't want to be crucified, how would you avoid it? If you were a good person, but you knew that you were going to be crucified, you didn't want to be crucified, how would you avoid it? Let's look at the scriptures now. In Luke's Gospel, chapter 22, starting with verse 39, it says, Jesus went out as usual. At times, we lift free-heartedness and spontaneity to the highest level. Doing things off the cuff, doing things without thought, without planning. In our modern day, we seem to revel the notion and the idea of being able to do whatever we want to do at any time and to spontaneously create events or follow or commit actions that have nothing to do with a progression. It's just something that strikes us at the moment. All spontaneity is not bad, but it should not be elevated to the most important moving force in our lives. A good founding and a ground of foundation should be custom. And yes, even habit. There should be things that we do that we have discovered from observation, from instruction, from experience. Our lives should have a solid foundation of things that we know are good things, that they're not questionable, that they add strength to our lives, and that they are positive. They are enforcements of good things. Jesus went as usual to the Mount of Olives. You know, it says that Jesus went to the synagogue as his custom was. Jesus had customs. There were things that he usually did. There were things that were part of his life and things that the disciples, who very seldom knew what was going on, could look and say, all right, we're going to go to the Garden of Gethsemane and pray now. God, I know where we're headed. I know what we're about to do. We're going to go and pray. Well, some of us are going to take a nap, but some of us are going to pray. A part of your maturity in mind should be to find things that we always do. Things that we always do that are worthwhile. They're valuable. They have meaning. I see so many lives these days of people simply making decisions from one moment to the next, and they don't know what they're going to do. They're deciding. They're confused, and there are so many things, and more often than anything else, they feel overwhelmed because they're really just making up their life as they go. They don't have a pattern. There's no structure. They have been convinced that any kind of legality or any kind of structure, any kind of skeleton of enforcement is a bad thing because it locks us in. It takes away our freedom. It chains us by the ankles and the hands. That's just not true. We can spend a whole life finding things that are good, they're sound, and they're solid. And when we find something like that, we can say, I'm going to make that one of the building blocks of my life. I'm going to make that one of the things that I'm known for. That when people say, he usually does this, this is something that's often a part of what he or she does. So Jesus went out as was usual to the Mount of Olives. His disciples followed him. If you're going, and if your travels take you toward God, if you're moving toward the Lord Jesus, and if you're moving toward heaven, if you're moving upward and onward, there may be people who haven't found those stones yet. They may not know the path. But these disciples were following Jesus. There are people who are watching you, and sometimes people just want to know how to get from one place to the other. And the one thing that might give them a sense of safety or security or assurance is following you and me. Remember, the prophet Ezekiel talked about a man whose responsibility was, he was a watchman. And he says, what if a watchman blew an uncertain sound? What if you could hear, well, he's playing, I hear a note, but I've never heard that note before. I don't know what song he's playing. You see, there were certain blasts of the trumpet that said warning. There were certain blasts of the trumpet in number or duration that said, let me have your attention. Or there were, like the boatswain's whistle on a naval ship, like the semaphore flags. It's not just a sound or a racket, it's a message. If you're going to an important place, if your life is headed in a good direction, it's very, very important for the people who may need help in your life, your family members, your friends, to know the way. Often at funerals, a part of my message to the family is, look and how did your mom or your dad, how did your grandfather or grandmother, how did they walk? What did they do? Where did they often go? What were they like? You may have dismissed them or overlooked them. Maybe you didn't know if you were paying close attention, but now we're at their funeral. This is their memorial service, and this is an important thing to know. Where did they go? Where did they come from? Where are they now? It's a good funeral message. If you've got a person there that, now I've preached lots of funerals where I didn't know where they came from, and I didn't know who they were. I didn't know what they believed in or what they did. I knew nothing. I've preached lots of funerals. I've said words over people that I never met, never knew, simply because someone needed a preacher to say some preacher funeral words before the body was interred. It's a service that I can do, but I don't have anything that I can say about that person. The disciples followed Jesus. On reaching the place, he said to them, pray that you will not fall into temptation. He withdrew about a stone's throw beyond them and knelt down and prayed, Father, if you are willing, take this cup from me, yet not my will, but yours be done. Now Luke doesn't say, as other gospel writers do, that Jesus actually prayed this prayer 3 times. He prayed and he didn't seem to get any kind of response or answer, and so he came back out to the disciples and he saw that they were sleeping. He went back in. Luke here just simply says, well, he prayed. And this is what he prayed. He says, Father, if you're willing, take this cup from me. And he's talking about the cup of his death, of his suffering and death. People spoke of drinking the cup, bitter cup of death. This is my end. This is my last drink. And so he's speaking in the parlance of his day. Luke says an angel from heaven appeared to him and strengthened him. Why? Because God was not going to answer Jesus' prayer. Jesus was going to be required to drink this cup. Matthew says that he said, not my will, but thine be done. When the angel showed up, I wonder what kind of conversation they had. We don't know. It's not recorded. But the angel came to strengthen him because he was going to have to submit to the will of God. Being in anguish, he prayed more earnestly. Now, this is Luke's indication that it wasn't just one single, simple prayer. And his sweat was like drops of blood falling to the ground. When he rose from prayer and went back to the disciples, he found them asleep, exhausted from sorrow. Exhausted from sorrow. Why are you sleeping? He asked them. Get up and pray so that you will not fall into temptation. I want to address those two questions again in concluding the lesson today. Getting rid of Jesus was the solution to all of their problems. The Jewish leaders, the Pharisees, the scribes, the Sadducees, the people who were experts in the law, getting rid of Jesus was the solution to all of their problems. That's what they believed. It was not true. Killing Jesus was the worst thing that they could have ever done. Why? Because that was God's plan for Jesus' life. The death of Jesus was not an accident or something that got out of hand and took place in spite of all of Jesus' efforts. It was God's will for Jesus to offer his life as a sacrifice for us, for our sins. The death of Jesus was to be the death knell of sin, hell, death, and the grave. Let me say this. You may feel that there's a person in your life who's standing between you and success. That's a wicked philosophy. That's a cowardly opinion. If you believe, I've seen husbands cast off their wives. I've seen wives walk away from their husbands and their family because they felt that husband or that wife, if I just could be free of them, then I could be happy. My life would be what it is supposed to be. Sometimes people say, if he were not my boss, or if she were not my supervisor, this would actually be a great place to work. It's a very infantile point of view. If you feel that there is someone or some people in your life that it is their existence that keeps you from being or doing what you want to do, you're very narrow-minded and very limited. You're going to feel a bitterness and an anger, a resentment, and maybe even a hatred to that person. I see it in the political arena. If we could get rid of this political candidate and put our candidate in its place, then everything would be perfect. It never works that way. That's never right. Sometimes when you elect an official, sometimes he's 1,000 times worse than the previous candidate. If you can do a survey of your life and you feel that there is someone, a person in your life, that if you could destroy them, if you could obliterate them, if you could remove them, if there is something you could do to bring them down or get them out of the way, then you would be on easy street the rest of your life. That's a tragic, awful way of living a life. Because you see, you've got to take responsibility for your life. I have to be responsible for my happiness. I have to decide to do what God wants me to do. I can't point out someone and say, if it weren't for them, everything would be all right. You've probably been attacked or you've been assayed by people who thought that removing you or hurting you or harming you would be the solution to all their problems. I hope that gives you a tenacity to remain and to make a stand and to prevail. I believe that I can genuinely say that I do not live my life every day to try to make any other person in the world miserable. It is not my goal in life to live the kind of life that will hinder people or hurt people or keep them down or shackle them or harm them in any way. I know that we all inadvertently cause damage sometimes. Sometimes we hurt people. Sometimes we are reckless. Sometimes we're careless. Sometimes we just don't see. Yes, and there may be times when we intentionally harm people. But let me assure you that getting rid of Jesus did not solve all of their problems. If there is someone in your life that brings a dark cloud over you, or someone that you don't like, someone that you feel like is a negative impact in your life, you may plot and plan, and it may not be you that instigates the plot, but if you ever see a plot develop against that person, you're on board, you're on the train. I want to give my consent. I notice that you're going to be taking out this person. I'd just like to throw in with you guys, if that's all right. It's a very, very, very wicked, awful way to look at the lives of other people. Whether it's revenge, whether we feel like, many people feel like that they are the justice of God or the hand of God, doling out what is deserved. We're seeing a lot of cancel culture these days, where if someone makes a mistake, maybe they say the wrong thing or make the wrong choice, do the wrong thing, cancel culture comes along and say, okay, you wore blackface, or you used the N-word, or you mistreated someone, you cheated on your husband or your wife, you were dishonest, you did something criminal. That gives me the permission to completely destroy your life, to destroy your career, to completely dismantle everything that you are and everything that belongs to you. In other words, and I see it often, I see it every day among celebrity and in entertainment, in politics, in social life. There's a multitude of people out there that they're scanning every piece of information they can find, and when they find a black mark, it's not just calling them on that incident. It's saying, this person deserves never to work again. This person, we're never going to... In Texas, many, many years ago, do you know who the Fab Four were?
Yeah, the Beatles.
The Beatles. They were going to be playing at a stadium venue, and they were in the same town where Billy Graham was going to be. Leading a crusade. A lot of people don't realize that when the Beatles started their career, they were just teenage little boys, and they were pretty much always kind of immature and silly. And all they had to do in life was pretty much have fun and make lots of money and sing their songs. They were at a press conference before the concert. You may know this. You probably, if you know anything at all about the Beatles, they asked the Beatles, and this was, I believe, probably after the concert, or, Billy Graham's crusade were night after night after night, usually for a whole week or 2 weeks. And they said, we saw that you had so many thousands and thousands of people at your concert last night, and Billy Graham only had 10,000 people. He had a very small crowd. What does that say? And John Lennon, he just shot his mouth off. He just said the first thing came to his mind. He says, well, I guess maybe we're more popular than Jesus Christ. Well, he didn't believe that. But he was making, I believe, a statement that maybe needed to be said. To a lot of people, evidently, if they had a choice of going to a religious service or go to hear the Beatles, you'd say, well, maybe that does say that the Beatles are more popular to them than Jesus is. John wasn't saying that we're more popular than Jesus, we're better than Jesus, or anything wrong with, but the American press, this was not the first instance of counterculture or cancel culture, but they excoriated the Beatles. People were just looking for a reason to condemn them anyway. You know what people in churches all over America began doing?
Burning the albums.
Yeah, burning their albums, burning their records. And it was a regrettable thing. And, you know, what you ought to do is go to John Lennon and said, hey, bud, should you have said that? John Lennon would say, no, sir, I wish I'd never said that. I should have shut up. So I get it. That's all right. Don't worry about it. You know who understands more than me? The Lord understands. Don't worry about that. Jesus loves you. It really is not all that. I think today that we feel that being critical of someone and demeaning someone and destroying someone and criticizing someone and complaining about someone and casting and giving the impression that that person is the reason that I'm unhappy. That's a very immature, childish way to believe. Avoiding crucifixion was the most important thing that Jesus could do. Wasn't, was it? Avoiding the crucifixion wasn't the most important thing that he could do. We get an indication here that it's what he wanted to happen. Let's avoid the crucifixion. And he didn't want to avoid saving mankind. He didn't want to, he thought there should be salvation. He was just saying, is there a different way? Is there some other way that we need to save humanity? But is the cross the only way of doing it?
He was looking for a loophole, basically.
But God did not respond to him, or if he did, we don't have the response. Jesus consented to the will of God. Sometimes difficult or painful things that don't make us happy, things that we don't like, things that we're not going to enjoy, those things are still important. There's a whole culture of people, not just young people out there, that if something is painful or something is difficult or something is going to hurt, they just avoid it completely. All responsibility. I heard one statement I wanted to say about cancel culture. They quoted LeVar Burton. He said, I don't believe that what we're seeing is cancel culture. He said, it seems to be, we're talking about consequence culture. Consequence culture. You know what he was saying is? People are finally getting what they deserve. People have been doing this for a long time, but now people are saying things, and people are doing things, and they're finally reaping the consequences. The very worst thing that could ever happen in a human life. You know what it is? If you get what you deserve. There was a young public defender. He was assigned to defend a recalcitrant drunk and criminal, and the judge says, well, what do you wish? What is it you want? And the young lawyer stood up and said, sir, we are here today for justice. And his client staggered to his feet and he says, no, judge, we're not here for justice. We're here for mercy. I don't want justice. I don't want, people say, all I want is what's coming to me. God forbid. I hope I never get what's coming to me. The reason Jesus is going to die on the cross is that he doesn't want people, that the consequences of our sin is eternal. And he came to pay the price. It disturbs me when someone like that says, well, people are just getting what they deserve. And he probably sits back and says, look at there. That's funny. That's enjoyable. They're finally they're reaping what they've sown. It's a terrible thing to wish on people, for bad things to happen to them. Yes, they made bad mistakes. Maybe they said the wrong thing. Maybe they did something awful. Maybe they were a terrible person. You know what the Bible calls that? Sin. And we've all sinned. I'm glad God says in his mind, I don't want people to reap what they've sown or the consequences of their sin. If we don't pay for it for them, they'll have to pay for it for themselves, and that cost is too high. Well, you can study Jesus' time in the Garden of Gethsemane for all of your life, and there's so much there to learn. But I'm so glad that Jesus made the commitment there to do something that he knew would be a terrible thing in his life, that would end his life, so that you and I wouldn't have to reap the consequences of our lostness. Well, God bless you all. Our worship service will begin in just a little bit. Take time to take a break. I hope you'll come back, and there will be others who will be coming to join us as we worship at 11. God bless you all, and thank you. Don't forget, come for our breakfast instead of Sunday school next Sunday morning at 10 a.m.